All right, so let's get started. Welcome to the February 10th Conservation Commission meeting. We've got a quorum here. We don't have any public in attendance. Could I get a timekeeper and a minutes taker? I'm happy to do time because I haven't taught anyone how to do the time codes for the recording yet. Maybe we do that. I can talk about that next meeting.
Sam,
But yeah.
can I sit out as far as taking notes tonight? Because I know I said I'd be taking them, but I've got a little bit of a problem, carpal tunnel thing going on with my hand from skiing too much. And I want this to heal.
You've done minutes the last probably 6 meetings, so I would say it's only fair if somebody else can take minutes tonight. I will remind folks that for whoever volunteers, we do have Otter AI doing the transcript, so it's not super challenging. It's good to have some of your own personal notes, and then you can just sort of cross-reference what the transcript says, and then it's pretty easy to assemble from there. So do we have any volunteers for a minutes taker?
I can try it, but I know nothing about. Or Jeanette, you want to do it?
Janet, you're muted.
Jeanette, Sam, you can unmute her, can't you?
I guess I can.
Yeah. Hi.
There you go.
Yeah. I can this is probably a good month because I'm going to get really busy soon with the amphibian program. So I could do this month.
That would be great if you don't mind.
Sure.
Can you send me or all of us the otter or whatever the heck it's called so
Yep.
that those of us in the future for minutes know what it's all about? I know
Sure.
nothing.
Yeah. Duncan, I think, has been forwarding them. Although, yeah, I'll make sure if he sends it just to me, I'll forward it to the whole group so everyone can see what it looks like. But yeah, it's a pretty nice transcript. It does a pretty solid job, and even will put out like action items, which is nice. So you know, we know what we agreed to do during the meeting. So it's a good like high level view. Um,
It's
I will say I don't trust it quite enough to do everything for us. It's a good supplemental tool.
it's really made it a lot easier, and it gives you a little bit of a backup in case you don't get all the notes. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's great.
And which is helpful too because, well, before last meeting, we didn't even record these, and now we're recording them. But even going through the recording, that takes a while to scrub through. Whereas you can just sort of Control F through in the Otter notes, and you can find what you're looking for pretty easily. So it's a great resource, and I'm glad that the town is sending them to us. Okay, cool. So we've got our timekeeper and our minutes taker. Next up, we've got to approve the January 13th minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
I mean, I have no problem making the motion, but am I supposed to be involved in that since I did them?
Uh,
Sure.
Probably better if somebody else made the motion since you wrote the minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Fine by me.
Okay, we got a second. Any comments or discussion? Okay, well, all in favor of approving the January 13th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, great. So unanimously approved. Any additions or changes to the agenda? No? Okay, so I have a couple real quick ones. They're just kind of more updates, just sort of informational updates. I guess I'll send it out via email, but Judy was digging around her inbox and found a couple things that she forwarded to me. One was the Native Plant Trust Plant Conservation Volunteer. There's like an application process for that we're actually past the application deadline at this point, but I don't know if they're still doing rolling applications. So I might send you all something about that for folks who are interested. Judy was going to try to get some more information about that to see if they're still accepting applications. The other thing that I'll mention that wasn't on the agenda is there was a UVM landscape design class that came to Richmond last Monday, not yesterday, but 8 days ago. They're focusing on the town green. John Cart and I were both there along with Josh Arneson. Trevor joined as well. And Lucas from the WNRCD was there. And it was, it was a great meeting. They're coming back again on the 18th of March from 12:30 to 2:30. That's a Wednesday at the Volunteers Green for anyone who's interested. The class is probably like 30 or 40 students, and they're doing landscape design ideas for the town green, which potentially, includes ideas for, stream bank restoration and, conservation. So it was good to have a few folks there representing the conservation interests of the town. If anyone is interested in going to the one in March, it was a pretty good time. So I'll probably be there again. And then they're also going to do final presentations later.
Could you send out?
Yep.
Sorry, could you send out that info in an email?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I'll probably just re-forward. Yeah, I'll forward you something. I had sent one out, I think a week or two before the class, but I'll either resend that one or I'll forward the follow-up email I got from Stephanie Hurley, who's running the class, or Richard Amore. He's the other one who's running the class. So yeah, those are just informational items. There's not really much to discuss there, but I just wanted to let people know that there's an opportunity. And they might have some questions for us that might get forwarded to me. So if I feel like I can't answer them, then I might send that out to the group, or maybe we could talk about some of that stuff at the meeting, although I'd probably like to turn that around quicker than a month. Okay, so got to stay on top of my timekeeping here. So moving on, let's talk about CRF renewal. So there was a town informational budget meeting last Saturday, which I attended and presented the Conservation Reserve Fund explanation and renewal. Thank you, Bob Lowe, for doing all that work in updating the deck that we've used in years past. Also, thanks to Brad Elliott, who did some work on coming up with some of the conservation project list and how the funds were used in 2025. I think it went pretty well. There weren't that many people there, but it's something that we want to make sure that we're getting ahead of and making sure that folks in town understand the benefits of the Conservation Reserve Fund, because if it gets voted down, then we won't have a funding mechanism anymore, and I think we just have whatever funds remain in the fund. So that's one thing. There's another meeting on February 23rd. The trick there is I actually have an ACFC meeting that night that I'm chairing. So I might be able to do double duty and just walk over for those, few minutes and step out of the ACFC meeting. But if anyone is interested in presenting in my stead, that would be great. Judy might be interested. She sounded interested in doing the one on Saturday, but then she didn't show up. So I'm not really sure what was going on there. But maybe she can cover and I'll just do my ACF thing that night. But in addition to that, I think it would probably be a good idea for us to take turns posting on Front Porch Forum in favor of the Conservation Reserve Fund. I can probably dig up some of the language we've used in the past and send that out. And I think that if we space things out and kind of talk about how, we're in support of the CRF and why, I think that will be helpful just to get ahead of things so that it's on folks' minds when they're voting on town meeting day. Does
Couple
anyone
of
have
things
any?
there. I think you should try to get Judy, because she's done it before. In the meanwhile, I'll be in Geneva, so I'm not able to do anything like that.
Okay.
You might also find that Brad has all sorts of quotes that can be used.
Yep. Yeah, Brad's got a lot of great info. Yeah, I'll coordinate with Judy and see if she wants to do it. It would be great if she could just do it because then I don't have to step out of my other meeting. But if she can't, that's fine. I thought things went pretty well. Thankfully, I was well equipped with information from both Brad and Bob to present that information. So I thought it was pretty solid. There were a few questions I got that were kind of related, but weren't directly about the CRF that I need to get back to folks on, but nothing crazy. So I guess one thing that came up was folks were wondering what percent, do we know what percent of Richmond is currently conserved? Because I know
We
the
do
state.
know that. The published version that we heard at the select board said something around 19 or 20%, but you should ask Brad because I believe it's higher. It
Okay.
depends on how you define conserved lands.
Yeah, that was another thing that came up. Because yeah, that's different than what is it? Current use. You know, you've got like conservation easements, and then you have land that's under the current use program, which is different. And then there's also land that, you know, let's say in the floodplain that you can't really build on it, but it might not be in a, you know, under a conservation easement. So it's technically not conserved, even though maybe it could be. And maybe that's something that we should pursue. Reaching out to some of the landowners, because why would you not conserve it if you can't do anything else on that land anyway? So just a little food for thought, because some of that came up. But yeah, any other thoughts on the CRF renewal stuff? Oh, Bob?
It comes up regularly, so I think you should check with Brad to find out what it is the RLT wishes to use as the percent.
Okay. So both what percent of Richmond is conserved, but then also what our RLT would like to hit.
And then the related issue is, isn't that going to hurt everyone's taxes? And the studies that I've quoted before, and the only ones I know about, say that in fact conserved lands saves on taxes.
Yeah, and that was in the deck, which was helpful.
Yep.
So it was good to have some of that information reinforced in the presentation.
Yep.
Any other thoughts on CRF renewal?
I can't raise my hand on
Oh,
this
sorry.
because I'm like I can't do like the icon because I'm just on the web version.
Yeah, you can
Sorry,
just wave.
somebody's chiming in. I got an email from one of my friends who forwarded an email from Brad asking people to add their names to an ad on Times Inc. I don't know if any of you also got that.
Yep.
So that's, I guess I just wanted to add that is also going around.
Yeah, I don't know I can check with Brad. I'm not sure what the deadline is, but it's coming up quick if it hasn't already passed. So, does anyone here want that email, or that it wasn't on the list? I mean, I think like Brad has a running list of people who have pitched in on that ad before, and so he reaches out to the same folks each year, but it might get forwarded around as well. But it's the same amount of ad space, so the more people that support it, the less it's going to cost everybody. But you also get your name in the paper showing that you are supporting the CRF renewal. Jeanette?
I'm wondering if Brad has a blurb to explain how conserved land saves taxes.
I don't know if that is in the Times Inc. ad. It's
I mean,
I
for
can
the
try
front
I can
porch
pull it up.
forum. I mean, for the front porch forum.
Oh, well, okay, yeah. Well, here's the thing. We might want to coordinate on that. Like I said, I think it would be great if we could kind of take turns posting on Front Porch Forum leading up to town meeting day, just so, you know, folks are aware, you know, that the CRF exists and why it's beneficial to the town. and we could take slightly different approaches, you know? So if one person posts just about, okay, well, it's been made, you know, it's been used for this project, that project, and, you know, this other thing. And then another person might take a different approach, you know, rather than just, we don't want to copy and paste the same language a bunch of days in a row and just because that's just kind of spammy. So if if one of those postings ends up being like, how does adding conserved land reduce taxes, then that would actually be a pretty like interesting and good approach to doing one of those daily postings. And I don't think
Sam,
we need to do it every day, but like, you know, maybe every 3 days or something leading up to the
Sam, I know Brad had a list of different things to say so that we wouldn't repeat ourselves. He had
Okay.
a list, I think, of like eight different paragraphs to say, and gave them out to people, you know, when we put them out. So
Okay.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's covered a great deal of that.
Okay, great.
Yep.
I'll reach out to Brad. I mean, we're very close because of all of our ACFC goings on.
Yep.
Jeanette?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You just were still raised from before.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't notice it not going down. Yeah, so I guess because we're not going to have another meeting between now
Right.
and town meeting, we should have a plan. So if you guys are okay with it, I can probably just coordinate with Brad on, like, I don't know if everyone here is a Front Porch Forum user, but if we can get a general, consensus or like agreement that folks are willing to make one post, you know, between now and town meeting day, I can come up with like a schedule, and I can get that information from Brad, and basically we can have like a few different post types, and then like a schedule for who's supposed to post around what day, and then we can basically just like copy and paste that into a Front Porch Forum post, and then we'll have some spaced out promotion for the CRF leading up to it. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yep.
Okay. Um, great. And then, yeah, I guess I don't think we've really done that in the past, but I suppose if we have that, then we'll just have a template for years in the future too, right? Where it's just, you know, just swap out the names and swap out the dates, but you'd still have like the spacing, and then you'd have, here's the general topic or like language that you should post about. Okay, cool. Any other thoughts on CRF renewal?
I don't really post things publicly online.
That's fine. I
I don't
mean,
know if I
if you don't have,
want to do that.
okay, that's fine.
Mostly just for that reason. If I can think about it, I might change my mind.
Yeah, I'll send out an email about it. Yeah, I don't want to like pressure anyone, but for anyone who's comfortable posting and is on Front Porch Forum, you know, and we might be able to get some friends of the Conservation Commission to do it too. You know, like Brad might do it. I know
My
some
wife
other
would do it.
Yeah, yeah. So that would be fine. You
Okay.
don't have to be a member of the Conservation Commission. After all, this is, you know, anyone in the town who's in support of the CRF and wants to say something about it should say something about it if they feel like it. And, you know, it doesn't usually happen. I don't know if it's ever happens, but it's possible that some people might post saying like, I don't think this is a good investment for the town. So hopefully I guess I would encourage folks not to like, what I've learned from ACFC and how things can get a little contentious on that side of things is that it's not super helpful to get defensive and to specifically try to like call out, people or points that the people are sort of like presenting against. You know, if somebody was to present against the CRF, I don't know.
Make a counter post.
Yeah, I just feel
Yeah.
like it just ends up being kind of like I don't know, like arguments online usually just are not great. And so normally, unless we get some deluge of comments, I would say that generally speaking, you can just kind of ignore them and we can just continue to post our like positive spin on here are the things, unless there's like, factually incorrect information. But I would say if that happens, I'm not on Front Porch Forum every day, so I might not see those. But I suppose if that comes up, we could, coordinate. Well, we can't really coordinate via email. If somebody notices it, somebody could send it informationally to the commission, and a less than quorum could decide whether or not they wanted to respond. But I guess I would encourage folks just to ignore that type of those types of remarks online. Usually that's the best way to deal with that kind of thing, is to just, not really acknowledge. But I don't think it'll happen anyway. So yeah, I'll come up with that table. I'll send out an email. Folks can choose to sign up. So I'll come up with like a basic schedule for how we can post about this stuff. And then folks can say like what their availability is or what their comfortability is for posting. And then we can basically just all make sure we post on or around the day that we signed up for, and we should be in good shape. I will note that the CRF has passed usually by a pretty decent margin every year. I guess the only change this year is like we're sitting on $360,000, which is a decent amount of money. So maybe that would be a reason why people are like, well, what are we using this money for if it's just accumulating? But clearly we've seen some creative uses of it that benefit the town, like Brown's Court and the park benches and whatnot that went there. There was the equipment for Richmond Mountain Trails for doing trail maintenance. It's been used. It even came up in the budget informational meeting, like whether or not RCC money or CRF money could be used for like this building, like the town center, which like is kind of sketchy. I feel like but technically, I guess somebody could put in an application. So yeah, I think even if folks think that that the number is getting too high, that there are plenty of good uses for that money. So yeah, I think that's probably enough on the CRF unless anyone has final thoughts.
Sam,
Okay.
I'm about to email you an article or a website for Deb Brighton, land taxes and conservation in Vermont.
Excellent.
Can you
Okay.
distribute it?
Yeah, if you send it to me, I can send it out to the rest of the group. Okay, moving on to Vermont Master Naturalist Program updates. Is that you, Jeanette, or is that you, Susanna?
Susanna.
I think that's me.
Great.
I don't have too much of an update from when Rebecca and David talked to you guys, but basically, there's me, and then I'm going to be working with this woman named Mandy who lives in Jericho, and then there's Rebecca and David, and then there's another guy named Chris who's going to be working with them. And my project is the Phragmites stand that's across from where I live. It's on Route 2. And Jeanette and I need to connect more outside of this to talk about the steps to take. But basically, I'm still like in an information gathering phase about the best ways to combat the Phragmites. And like, yeah, so like treatment of the Phragmites, and then because Phragmites is something that takes years to address, kind of figuring out that process and how to involve neighbors in it. And then Rebecca and David, and this is something that Jeanette and I can also connect on, because I don't know how involved to get in their part of it, but I'm not sure if their project is going to really fit neatly into the 5 steps, because it's just their land, and I don't know if they want to involve neighbors. So yeah, but they're definitely interested in doing mapping and like having people come consult with them on their land, and they're doing like long-term invasives identification and removal, and then would like to do planting. So yeah, I think that's like basically what I have right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, that sounds good. So like those are, yeah, entirely separate projects.
Yeah,
there
they're
anything-
supposed to. Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
sorry.
No, you're good. You can go.
Well, I was just gonna say they're supposed to be within the umbrella of the rewilding project, but
Okay.
I think that I'm not, yeah, like I'm just not sure thinking about the five steps and having like pulling parties, that kind of thing, how Rebecca and David are gonna fit their planning into that model.
I have,
Okay.
I have a suggestion, which is if they, to invite their neighbors to come and help them, as an
Right.
education opportunity.
I'm not sure if they're like open to that. So, um, and I'm not really in a position to, I think, push them on that. So I'm just not, yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to fit in.
Susanna, I have something to say about your project. We'll just wait and I guess hear back from you what they want to do. I guess you're the person who will let us know from your meetings how they want to proceed. Just keep us in the loop about
About
their
Rebecca and
project.
David,
Yeah, about their project.
um, I'm trying to kind of like figure out my role. And I think that if I'm the neighborhood leader for like the Phragmites stand, that I would prefer not to be like a liaison for Rebecca and David and their project. I'd rather if there was just communication with them. Um, since we're doing like separate projects.
That makes sense.
I'm happy because I volunteered in the beginning to be the liaison to reach out to them and just let them know that if they have anything they want us to know or need any support, would thank them for coming to our last meeting. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I think that would work well.
Okay.
And then they can, yeah, if they, because I guess I think, Jeanette, since you have put so much work into the design of Rewild and the five steps, that, sweetie, I hear you, that if if they have concerns or like questions about how they can fit their project into those five steps, that it might be a more productive conversation with you.
Okay. I'm happy to do that. I just mentioned something. I've done some research about what it takes like you, to manage Phragmites. It's a really challenging one for volunteers to manage. Small patches for sure. The one I think you're thinking about, is it the one along Route 2?
Yeah, so it's like basically right across from Lily Pond Circle, a little bit down. I think it's on the LaBounty's property, where it says LaBounty Lane. And but the first patch, well, it's I guess the first piece that I want to address is some that's popped up in the Lily Pond, and I feel like really strongly about that because the lily pond is so wonderful, and it, I just am like cannot take over the lily pond, and I do know that it is really challenging, and it might actually involve like use of herbicides, but on such a small scale that I don't think we would have to have like a licensed professional, at least for the amount that's in the lily pond. um so that's another thing that I know in the five steps it said no herbicides, that we might have to be creative with, because digging Phragmites up does not really seem to work, um, since it can just spread through the rhizome, like if there's any little pieces of it left. So yeah, Phragmites is definitely like it's a challenging one to take on, but it's also really important.
So
Well,
yeah, what I'll
from my research, it takes, at least 3 to 5 years to get a handle on it. And what's suggested is to cut it back in late summer, early fall, like a big, long, vigorous cut. And then to immediately hit them up with the chemicals that are wetland approved, which would require somebody with professional training and how to do it and certification, and then follow up from there by that person who may want to recruit neighbors to help monitor it and to educate each other about it and figure out what they can do when they want to catch it really early on their own property. But you're right that once it gets going and it takes off the way it likes to do, it really requires professional help. That's my understanding.
Right. Yeah. Um, I think I got a link to like the state rules for herbicide use, and it's really long, but I need to look into it because I want to see if there's anything that says like if you're using like up to a certain amount on your own property, if you can just apply it yourself. That might apply to the amount that's in the lily pond because it's so small. So that's part of what I'm researching right now.
I believe the way that it works, I don't know if there's a separate set of rules for wetlands, but I believe the way that it works is if it's your property, you may use herbicides. There might be a few herbicides that you are not allowed to apply without a license, but I like triclopyr might be one that you're like because it's so strong that you might not be able to apply, but like glyphosate you can do on your own property. And I don't think it's about how big of an area you're treating. I think it's about the chemical you're using more than it is about like how many.
Okay.
But you have to be the owner unless you're licensed. So you don't have to have your own business to get licensed, but there is a like a certification process. Like Judy is actually, I believe, certified to apply them. I don't think she's volunteering to do it. I'll let her speak for herself, but she told me that it was not that hard to get educated
So
and to get a license. So then you can essentially you could help somebody with invasive plants on their land, and you could be the applicator of that herbicide.
are you the
Uh,
only one that's allowed to like put it on?
I believe so. If it's either you need
Okay.
to be the landowner or you need to have the license or the
I
certification
see.
or whatever it is. That's my
Okay.
understanding.
I think
Okay.
it's
Well, maybe I'll get
helpful.
certified. I
I
don't
think it
know.
says like right
I
on
don't
the
really
herbicide when you buy
want
it too. You
to,
have to be, it has
but
to be your land. Yeah.
um so I guess yeah, that does complicate the neighborhood work because I do think in a certain sense it would be a good project like for a neighborhood to do with the bigger stand if everybody could be like dabbing all the Phragmites
Well, if
in
your
that
neighbor is
bigger stand
really,
together,
yeah. Well, I mean,
but then everyone had to get certified.
yeah, exactly. Which I don't know. I mean, we could I could look into seeing how hard it is to get certified. If it's pretty easy and if it doesn't cost anything or if it's really cheap, then I don't know, maybe some of your neighbors would be interested in getting certified. Like we could even like I don't know if we'd be allowed to run like a class or something, but that would be an interesting option.
Okay.
Basically to
One
do
other,
something like
yeah.
educational to try to like be like, hey, like, are you interested in this? Would you like to manage some of this stuff? Like, but yeah, I don't know if we want to step into like promoting herbicide application, like from like the Conservation Commission perspective. Like that might be like something that people need to just decide on their own to do.
Right. Yeah, I mean in like certain circumstances it's like I think it's kind of a necessary step to take to protect the lily pond and yeah. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is that one of my neighbors has an app that I think is like geared towards hunting, but it basically is like a property map. So you just pull it up on your phone and it tells you whose property it is. And of course you can go to the town offices and request that information, but if you're like on the go and you're trying to map something out and you're like, wait, whose land am I on? That might, I don't know, that's something that we want to look into paying for like the neighborhood leaders to have, or my friend said it's like $50 a year, so it's not cheap. But we thought that was like an interesting option because I was like, okay, whose land is the lily pond on, and then whose land is like the big stand on, and he just pulled it up on his phone, and it was easy that way.
Bob?
I believe that's accessible through the state. There's a Richmond site I go to and I just pull up the map and it tells me who's there.
Yeah, that is
Or
correct.
Okay.
I
There
have
are
that
free-
I have that app and it's free. And it tells you where, you know, where the borders are of everybody's
Oh.
properties, and it's called Vermont. I can look it up, but I have it
There
on
are
my
a few-
phone.
There are a few. So
Okay.
the one you're probably thinking
Okay,
of.
he must have some other features.
Yeah, so he's probably using OnX, which is a popular hunting app that does cost. There is a yearly subscription, and it has a number of features that are useful. And I know folks in town that subscribe to that app and use it. But I believe that they use the state. They're using just pulling their information on properties from the state database anyway. So you're basically getting
Yeah.
the same information. You can get it elsewhere. But there's one app called, I think it's Vermont Land Boundaries. There's another one
That's it.
called Regrid that also has that same data. What I will note though is
Okay.
sometimes those property boundaries are not accurate and they take a while to update. So, for example, when I bought my house, it probably took 3 or 4 years for it to finally show up with my name on the property. So it's good for looking at the actual property boundaries, but especially if you're using that for more than just really general informational purposes, like I would not base any, big decision making or, on whatever you're seeing in the app because it could be outdated. So just make sure you know that you should probably cross-check, with the town before if you are going to use it for, herbicide application purposes or something, or whether or not you have like landowner permission. So it's good
Okay.
for the property boundaries, but it's not always 100% accurate. Kit?
Yeah,
And
I
then
just wanted to go back to the invasive plants conversation. I was noticing on the Rubenstein website today, they had a whole project called aquatic invasive removal. And I don't know, you might want to just check that out.
I will take all the info I can get. And I'm
Yeah,
also
I mean-
talking to somebody who's in the Williston Conservation Commission who worked in the Lake Champlain Basin Conservation Program or something like that, who knows about those wetland species.
Another thing I've noticed is that we could turn to Vermont Fish and Wildlife. I'm inclined to do that, to consult with them about this spot in particular, because it's quite an amphibian hotspot for crossing. And I know from the research I've done that Phragmites is very detrimental to them, to their habitat. It dries it,
Yeah.
it takes away their breeding pools. They need to stay moist, and they can't stay moist in that environment. I know that when we've helped the amphibians on that stretch of the road, I'm always hesitant to, help the frogs get back into an area that obviously impedes their movement. So, given the latest Vermont Fish and Wildlife Action Plan that came out that I've looked at, I think they'd be really interested in that spot and consulting with us to figure out what we can do to help the amphibians cross safely and more freely.
Okay, awesome. So Jeanette, you want to reach out
I will.
to them, and then
Yeah.
maybe do you want to just copy me on it?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Trevor, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so when using the hunting apps or some of the other boundary apps, to be careful because they base the boundaries often where they think the road is, and so if the road goes through the woods, sometimes it's not overlaid correctly. So if where you're looking is close to a boundary line, it might actually be slightly off because I know that like just at my house, the boundary lines are not right because I know where the pins are.
Yeah.
So like the line goes like into my neighbor's driveway, and I know where the pins are, and the driveway is not where the line is. And so like just be careful on the lines that it's not always going to be quite accurate just because of where they project them out from. Plus, it doesn't really take into account like topographical change going uphill. That kind of messes up the way the lines lay out
Okay.
sometimes. I like briefly looked into the herbicide thing just because after last meeting I tried to look into more invasives. And so I guess this is a short side. Going into the elementary school on the right, are there Phragmites there? Does
Oh,
anybody
like
know?
coming down Jericho Road.
Like going into the elementary school's like driveway on the right,
Probably 'cause-
going towards the interstate.
Yeah, because there are some right around the corner of that underpass as well. So
But like now I feel like I see them everywhere. Now that I think I know what they look like.
that's how it works.
So,
You
like-
do see them everywhere. Yeah, it's like you used to think it was like a nice, beautiful grass that looks really pretty in the winter, and now you're gonna like be like, ah.
So, like, so I think
I
like
have to
that one
go
figured out.
do bedtime, and I will leave my phone on, and I'll be back in a little while.
Okay, sounds good. See you in a few.
I think the herbicide thing is not hard. It does cost money, like the licensing. I like briefly looked at it because when I was looking at some of the different invasives, it basically said like you have to use something, you can't control it only with manual like removal and like I don't know if it's Japanese knotweed, might have been one of the ones or like that can be difficult. But then I think Phragmites was also one where, but then it's like you'd be careful with the right ones. And so I feel like when I looked into it, it didn't seem like it was that difficult. It's mostly just like learning how to actually mix things properly and understanding like metric system measurements.
Yeah.
Didn't seem super complicated.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I was like, maybe I told my wife, I was like, maybe I could like get licensed to do this, and then at least because also then you understand what they actually can do and where you should use them. Because as a homeowner, you can buy anything that you can buy as a homeowner, and you can use even though you're supposed to use them as required by the product, like only in certain areas. And some of them say like not near water, not when it's gonna rain. But like if you just bought it and you don't even most people don't read the package.
Yeah.
So like I feel like knowing the details on it and how it affects things and like where to use it and how and probably be pretty important, even if you're only using them on a limited basis. I don't know. I'd be interested in like looking into that.
Yeah, I think that it would be, I don't know. I think it's maybe a separate discussion that we could have at a future meeting on whether or not RCC would want to like officially, endorse or support herbicide use. I mean, honestly, I think it's necessary in a lot of cases, but also it's like that might be a job that for now we want to leave in the hands of professionals rather than trying to like start our own like education or trying to support, like the CRF, sponsoring like the application fee for people to get certified or something. Like I think right now it's got to be a personal decision. If folks want to do it, great. But I also think that we've talked about this in terms of like Richmond pulls together and how we're trying to focus on like mechanical removal because it's like less intimidating and also it's more broadly, I don't know, just accepted by the public because a lot of people get a little bit freaked out when you talk about using herbicides. And I think that there is a lot of really good education out there. I mean, I think, Ethan Tapper has been like a pretty good messenger of like here are responsible ways that you can use herbicides in like very like concentrated and like careful ways. But it would be a shame if we, we're trying to organize something or took a position and then people thought like, oh, what's going on here? And there was a lot of blowback. So I think the key here is to kind of start slow. We got plenty of things we can work on. If folks want to get certified and pursue some of that stuff on their own, great. But I don't think at this point in time we should promote that as a commission unless we have a dedicated discussion about it. And like I think we'd want to have a pretty thorough discussion on what stance we are taking and why.
Yep.
Cool. Well, we went a little over or way over on that one, so I think we should probably move on. So next up, recruitment. Yeah, so I guess I wanted to get just sort of get our bearings because coming up at the end of May we've got folks whose terms are up and just trying to figure out how many seats we're going to be looking to fill. I mean, I'm not necessarily trying to pressure anyone to make a decision right this second. But I think for recruitment purposes, it will be helpful if we have a general understanding of what the commission is going to be looking like come June. or, come, I guess technically, I think applications may be due some point in April. Duncan circulated an email about that recently. I can pull it up and send it out I'm not sure who all it went to, but right now we have one vacant seat, one vacant alternate seat, and the folks whose terms are up this year are Judy, Jeanette, Kit, and Bob. So that's a lot of potential vacancies depending on what folks' plans are. So yeah, I'm curious if folks have thoughts. I mean, I don't know if she's changed her mind, but I think Judy had mentioned that she was not planning on reapplying for her seat, and that's part of why she wanted to step down as chair so that she could pass the torch and pass on some of that knowledge before she's off the committee entirely. I'm sure we can probably still partner with her, but yeah. So unless she's changed her mind, I think that was her stated position. I'm curious about Kit, Jeanette, and Bob, if you have general thoughts at this time on whether or not you'd like to reapply.
Sam, I sent in my cover letter today to Duncan,
Oh, great.
reapplying, and I'll send in the application to him tomorrow. So yes, I'll reapply.
Great. Well, yeah, that's awesome news. I'm glad to hear that you're going to stay on for another term.
Yeah.
I plan on reapplying.
Great. Excellent. Yeah, you guys have both been super, super helpful in keeping our projects moving forward and organizing new stuff. And it's great having all of your feedback and discussion and meetings. So I'm pleased to hear that you're both reapplying or planning to.
So I probably never should have reapplied last time, and there's just basically no circumstance which would allow me to continue as a member. It doesn't mean I wouldn't be around, such as, for example, Brad is, but I just
Yep.
am not in a position where I can continue for
Okay.
a variety of health and personal reasons. I have snooped around a little bit. Does anyone else know Melissa Wollaver?
Yeah, I know her from Andrews Community Forest Committee. She's great.
I approached her in the fall saying I was certain there were going to be vacancies. And she said she wasn't interested at the time, but might be at the turn of the year.
Okay.
And the year has turned, especially.
It has. Yeah, great.
I've
Jeanette?
reached out to her about that, and
Yeah.
she's not ready to apply
Okay.
at this point in time. But good news, she has volunteered to be our Green Up Day coordinator.
Ooh.
Very good.
Which is excellent because Ibby
job,
joined
Jeanette.
that before.
Wow.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, and I think it is really helpful. Yeah, thank you, Bob, for everything that you've done on the commission and also for just letting us know what your plans are in the future. I think there's plenty of opportunities for helping out. I mean, as Brad has been, like with the CRF renewal stuff in the past, few weeks. And Bob, you've been great with a lot of this future land use stuff and, I mean, so many things, like the wetlands, like email thing that we are doing and the update for the town plan and, or sorry, the not the town plan, or like the town report. So yeah, I mean, I think, if you're always welcome here if you want to, chip in any way you can, but I totally get that you've got other, obligations and it's helpful to just know what our membership is going to look like so we have a good idea of how we should be handling recruitment because we have occasionally hit, meetings where we didn't have a quorum, which can't do much without a quorum. So, okay, so that's cool. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I know one person who might be interested. I've been, every month kind of trying to chip away or remind this person that we would love to have them. But I don't want to necessarily name them because I don't know if they're actually going to end up being interested. So if anyone has anyone they know that they think might be a good fit, invite them to a meeting or see if they have any interest. Or, we could potentially just invite them to some of the Save Our Salamanders nights or some of these Richmond polls together events. I think we should also potentially talk about seeing if we can do tabling again at the farmers market when the weather gets warmer, because I think it was nice to make some connections there. Just a good way to sort of spread the good word of RCC. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard. I feel like it can be a little hard to recruit, but it's something I think continue to need to think about, just because we could end up with a very few number of folks, and we don't really want to just be barely riding that quorum line.
Sam,
Jeanette?
I have an idea, which is I wonder if we're spreading the load with these blurbs that the promotional blurbs for the CRF. I wonder if some of us will feel comfortable maybe adding just a line or two about how we're looking for new members and, why we like being members.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'll add that to my action item when I make the table, with the, dates and the people and assignments or whatever. I'll also remind myself to include some language on, on recruitment, because I think that's a good opportunity to just share it at the bottom of the message or something.
When it comes out, we might look at the list of people who signed the Times Inc. blurb.
Oh, great point.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say, Bob, you'll really be missed. You've done a lot of work for us that is
You're doing the work.
extremely important. So, yeah.
It's a team effort, right? I mean, it's and everyone's playing the roles. And yeah, Bob, you've done so much for this commission.
Yeah.
And I hope you'll still be able to, help us out here and there when you feel like you've got the capacity.
For
'Cause
4 or
it'll-
5 years, I just sat in.
Wow. No, I think you did more than that.
No, I was not on I wasn't a member.
That's true.
Or an alternate. You were just, yeah,
Was neither an alternate or regular.
got it.
Oh,
But yeah,
I hope you'll feel welcome to continue that if you've got the energy or whatever to just sit in and, add your 2 cents as you feel moved.
Yep. Yes.
okay. I guess that's all really we have for now on recruitment. I suppose. Thank you for doing the work in reaching out to Melissa about Green Up Day, Jeanette. That it's a big load off off of us. We'll still need to do some coordination there on sort of digging up some of the materials that Ibit had from the past. Hopefully she can let us know, but if not, I think we could probably dig through our emails and also like past, Front Porch Forum post or meeting minutes from past meetings. So we'll have to piece together a plan. I do think it makes sense to kind of get organized with some of this stuff and to maybe have like a repository of some of these documents and processes, so that we have like one place where this stuff all lives. Because for me as the new chair, it's just like I don't really have much of anything. It's just like I'm just kind of just figuring it out as I go. So if we have like a calendar or I don't know, just so we have all the things we should be thinking about. We've kind of talked about this a little bit in the past, right? Where it's like a table or a calendar or a chart or something that's like, okay, well, in March, you should be thinking about, Green Up Day because it's, not that far off. And, in February, you should be thinking about Save Our Salamanders and then sort of documents that we would have for, all right, here's the process on what we do to get things rolling for Green Up Day and for Save Our Salamanders and for weed pulling season and, so on and so forth. Okay. Well, I think that's good for recruitment. And we can move on to ACFC updates, which I don't think we'll need a full 20 minutes, although I've thought that in the past and sometimes it takes a while. It seemed worth putting ACFC on the agenda just to give people an update on what's going on because we haven't really been talking about it too much. I guess technically we used to have sort of a rolling agenda item where it would be on the agenda sort of like every month, and I would give a few updates and then we would move on. But it's been a few months. So what I can say is we're very, very close to being finished with the revised management plan. I would say weeks, maybe a couple months, like hopefully no more than 3 months, but hopefully less. We finished the recreation section, which was like the really big logjam piece that was just gumming up the works and was really contentious. We also got through the education section that Jeanette helped craft. We worked on that last night. So that's in good shape. We have a few other pieces that need to be finished, like the appendix, which is it's sort of a combined recreation and ecology appendix because it's sort of acting as the bridge between those sections that was causing a lot of the sort of strife in the town. And I think it does a fairly good job of bridging that gap. We still have to finish that appendix, but I think it's in pretty good shape. And Brad and I are getting together this weekend to basically reassemble all the pieces that we've broken out and worked on separately back into one giant cohesive management plan, along with basically a table that has all the sections and then sort of like when it was last edited and by whom and like when it was like last approved by the committee. So we basically have the full view of the entire management plan. And then once we've done that and we basically make sure we've checked off every section and we know that we've got the most current approved version of each section and it's all one document, it will be shipped out to this commission as well as Richmond Trails Committee and also the select board for like the sort of like preview version, which simply just means that the content isn't really intended to change much, at least within the ACFC. So folks on this commission and the Trails Committee and the select board can look at it, submit comments. In the meantime, a few of us probably, I'm going to do, I think, all the reformatting of the management plan myself. And Sonia is going to help with the grammar because she is the best out of all of us when it comes to I don't know, just grammar and phrasing and making things, grammatically correct. So we kind of have a plan for how we're going to approach that. And yeah, we're getting real close. And then basically once we get comments from this commission and the Trails Committee and from the select board, we're going to take all those comments and, discuss and make adjustments based on the comments we've received, integrate them into the management plan, which hopefully won't take us too long. And then I'm assuming this is what's going to happen, but this will probably depend on what the select board would like us to do. Then it will probably go out again for public comment. I don't know if it's going to be another meeting like there was at the middle school where the sort of whole plan is presented and people can make remarks. It's a little tricky because on one hand, there are concerns that we might be in sort of an infinite feedback loop where it's like, okay, well, that was the public feedback. And then the committee has spent time based on like the feedback that was given. But there are members of the public that also have expressed some displeasure with some parts of the management plan and would like to say their piece. And so I don't think that it would be wise for us to proceed without some kind of public input mechanism. And so I kind of leave some of that decision making to the select board because ultimately ACFC, much like this commission, is an advisory board or body that basically serves at the pleasure of the select board, doesn't actually make the final decisions. So that's kind of the plan there. And yeah, I guess somehow Front Porch Forum post and support ended up on the agenda, I think, in under this section, which it doesn't really belong there. But yeah, does anyone have any like questions or concerns or thoughts about things with the Forest Committee? Bob, looks like you've got a comment.
I noticed something absent from your timeline.
Oh yeah.
A professional writer.
Yes. Yes, I can. Okay, so
I'm
the right.
delighted, by the way, that you might not be doing that.
Yes, and we probably won't for a few reasons. Originally,
Yes.
we wanted a writer because we thought that we needed one, but there was confusion over what the purpose of the writer would be, ranging from someone with deep knowledge in writing forest management plans who would essentially rewrite the plan for us to someone who is simply going to go through and just fix the, spelling and the grammar and the formatting. We have spent so much time now in working groups and as a full committee going through bit by bit, in part because we kind of realized that a third party is not going to be able to resolve the issues that Richmond has, like with the contentious issues. You can't just like sort of like pawn those off on some contractor. You need people in the community who actually understand what Richmond needs to be able to address those. So we had to fix those ourselves anyway, and those were the ones that were the most challenging, to deal with. So after we got through those and we basically went through section by section to update them, there's not a whole lot left that we would necessarily need somebody else to work on. So yes, it's still going to take some time to basically pull all these different sections in together and to recreate the full document. However, I don't think that this is something that we necessarily need a professional to do for us. Secondly, when we had talked to the select board about this at a select board meeting, it seemed like both the select board and members of the public were skeptical that we should be, spending money on a professional to do that work. So I think because of the work that the committee has already put in and the fact that it's not necessarily very popular for us to be spending money on getting those revisions to the management plan done, I think we're probably going to do it in-house. And right now, the current plan, which I haven't committed to yet, but next meeting, I think we're probably going to talk through it and come up with a solid plan, is I'm probably going to take a few days off of work and just like go through and reassemble the entire thing piece by piece, so that we have an entirely new, well-formatted document that's all cohesive. And then that's going to get passed off to Sonia for basically the spelling and the grammar and whatnot. And then once we have that reconstructed version, then we will basically go over it, I guess, as a committee to make sure that that we all sign off on it. At that point, we should not be seeing any major content changes. The only things that should be changing are it's going to look a little bit nicer formatting wise. All the fonts going to be the same type, and the headings will be the right size, and we'll have the linked table of contents and just kind of boring stuff like that, just so it looks like one nice cohesive document. And then any of the adjustments that Sonia makes should simply be if there was a spelling or grammatical error that we're trying to fix, or that if something could be written more clearly. So the first version that's going to come to us here at RCC and go out to RTC and the select board will be before that, because it's going to take us a little bit of time to reformat the thing and to change some of those the spelling and the grammar and whatnot. So the plan was to give everyone a sort of like the advanced copy where there is not going to be any significant content changes. So that way there's plenty of time for RCC and RTC and the select board to weigh in on the management plan as a whole, and whether or not those groups feel like there's something seriously wrong with it, or that there are main big ideas that should be changed. So when we first send it out, it's not going to be hey, can you go through this line by line and fix any, spelling or grammar or, anything like that. It's going to be bigger picture. Does this make sense? Does this reflect the conservation values that we're trying to support in Richmond? Or does this support the recreation goals of the community? And does this support, the forestry goals for, so that's essentially, I think the plan is to, as soon as we have it, the content stuff finished, we'll send that out so everyone can at least see like, well, here's our sort of like I don't want to call it a rough draft because it's going to be pretty close to being finished, but management plan that's been completed for content, but not necessarily for formatting. And then we can integrate all of the comments we get into that new version. That in the meantime, while this body and RTC and the select board are looking at and making comments on the version that we've sent out, those can be integrated into what myself and Sonia and whoever else has come up with. And if I guess at that point, if we feel like it's changed enough that it needs to go out a second time, I suppose we can do that. My hope is that those changes are going to be minor. It's just going to look nicer and just a little bit more polished. So that's kind of that's the plan. So I'm curious if folks have questions or concerns about that process.
So at the end of your timeline, it goes back to the select board for a vote.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. The select board has to approve it, as does Vermont Land Trust, because they're the easement holder. So,
but not first time. First time is mostly informational, asking for feedback, but not a vote.
Yes, exactly. It will go to them, for the same reasons that it will come to this to the RCC and to RTC, because ACFC has been huddled up for so long, like a couple of years now, working on this what we're calling the MP2, the management plan version 2, that we felt like it's necessary to get this out so that folks can look at it and see how they feel about it before we try to push it for any type of approval. And I will say ACFC has appreciated how patient the Conservation Commission has been on waiting for that moment when the management plan will go out for soliciting feedback, because I know it's of course anyone can comment as a member of the public, and some people have, but we have suffered in the past from a too many cooks in the kitchen kind of situation where we've needed less people to actually get progress done. And some of our best work has been done in groups of 3 or less, where then it has been brought back to the full committee, and then we've been able to make quicker work on some of the stuff that was worked out in smaller groups. So yeah, ACFC appreciates the patience, but definitely wants to make sure that everyone gets a chance to make their remarks, because everyone's been so patient in waiting for it, that it wouldn't be fair to just try to push it through without making sure there's ample time for comments. And so we're eager to get it completed, but at the same time want to make sure we're not cutting anybody off. Kit?
Yeah, I mean, this might be a dumb question. I don't know. But how are you organizing it so the management plan just doesn't keep going round and round, with comments, and then the comments come back and then a different comment. I mean, how is there, did I miss where you might have said that there's only going to be people looking at it a couple times and then making comments, and then that's it? There's a time frame on it where
Yeah, I think there will be a time frame. It might look similar to the way things work with the town plan, like updating the town plan, where it's like there's got to be a deadline. There's got to be a period of time where we've got to stop taking comments. We can integrate stuff. We're also going to have to sort of debate some of those comments and then decide whether or not we want to integrate them, right? Because depending on the feedback we get, we're going to get feedback that is going to be in conflict. Some people are going to say, hey, you should change this one way, and somebody else might comment, hey, you should change this a different way. And we're going to have to sort of like reconcile any differences between the comments. Ultimately, the reason why it might go back to public feedback again is because it's been a couple years, and also the makeup of the committee has changed almost entirely. I believe Ian might be the only person who was on the committee back when there was that public informational meeting or hearing at the Camel's Hump Middle School. So in the management plan has changed drastically since then. And I think we're taking a very different approach. Before the management plan, there was the text, and there was also a trail map that went along with it. And it is the current, basically the current makeup of the committee has deemed it, how do I put this? It doesn't make sense for us to create a map before we have the language, right? You need the rules in place before you can start trail building. And so the approach has changed, because before people were basically trying to just tack on this map to what already existed with the management plan. And because that trail map, it deviated so far from the initial concept map that was presented. It actually, the language in the management plan states that that requires a revision of the management plan, which is why we've been in this 2-year cycle of going through all this stuff section by section. And so now we believe that we've come up with a good way to find compromise and to protect the spaces that need to be conserved, while also allowing and promoting recreation in the forest. And so I think because it's such a wildly different approach than what we had a couple of years ago, that the residents of Richmond deserve to have a chance to submit their feedback. Ultimately, it may be the select board that decides here's when you are gonna get cut off in terms of feedback. But I think that we can hopefully have a relatively short process for feedback, where we can still take people's concerns and integrate them. And so yeah, I guess we'll see. Does that answer your question, Kit?
Yeah, and I was thinking too, and the initial management plan was sort of set up written in a way that could have various interpretations. It seemed like our group, interpreted it one way, and the other group interpreted it another way. And I'm assuming that's kind of been, since you guys are all the board is different now, that you probably are all on the same wavelength in interpreting, and the written part versus the interpretation are pretty what's the word I want? Just, I don't know.
Sync.
I mean, is there the other management plan had a lot of room for too much interpretation.
Yeah. Are there specific examples of places where you feel like things were being too broadly interpreted?
I can't remember now, but I just remember that it just seemed like, one side thought it was this way, the other side thought it was this way. And, how did I guess you guys have probably come to a better understanding of what everybody wants in that management plan.
Yeah. I think a lot of that was around, conservation versus recreation, where people were reading things different ways. And I think that we have shored a lot of that up, and it's much more prescriptive now. And here's what you can and cannot do. And and here's why, right? So the front half of the management plan is very prescriptive. It's, actions and objectives, objectives and actions. And, here are the things that you can do and should do, and, or have to abide by. And then we've kind of backloaded all the other stuff to appendices. So if you want to just look at the plan and say, how can we move forward and do stuff in the forest? You can just look at the sort of shorter, like front section of the management plan. If you want to see all the reasoning behind why we made the decisions we made, then you can read the appendices that will talk about
Oh, that's
here are
great.
here are the ecological studies. Here's like, here's all the information that we pulled together. And this is how we came up with, a 300-foot buffer on on a dry oak forest, or a seasonal buffer on a hemlock stand, or the buffers that we're choosing for wetlands, and streams, intermittent streams and ephemeral streams and whatnot. So I think it clarifies a lot of that stuff, and it sets pretty clear boundaries on how we want to move forward. So hopefully it will be pretty clear moving forward to folks on how to continue to take care of the forest, and how we're going to consider recreation and trail development and education and all the things that we want to do in the forest.
That's great.
Sam, I have practical questions about when should we expect to see it? That's question number one. Number two, how much time will we have to review it? And number three, will we be reviewing it during one of our RCC meetings?
Yeah, so when I would say 4 to 8 weeks, hopefully. I guess it depends on like if we get stuck in this recreation appendix, but I'm pretty confident that it's in good shape, and we've made it through the recreation section, which was like the big log jam, as Ian would call it. And it was a long section, and we came up with a lot of like new ideas there that also needed to be, debated quite a bit before we could come to a consensus. So timeline, I'm thinking that hopefully no longer than 8 weeks for timeline on when we should have this version all pulled together and ready to ship out before it's gotten the polish, right? How long will you have to look at it? That's a great question, and it's something the ACF should talk about. I could find the initial chart. I mean, part of that might be something that we want to ask the select board. Like, I want to make sure that people have plenty of time to look it over, because it is a lengthy document and deserves some careful thought. I also know. Well, I don't know. I guess some people in the town, I think, have just given up on the forest because it's been so long. But some people are still eager to see it, to see this new version of the management plan come out. And so I don't necessarily want it to be, like a 3-month, period for comments or something like that, because that's just going to draw the process out. So I guess we'll have to talk about that. I'm not sure. I guess I'd be curious if any of you have thoughts on what you think a reasonable amount of
I
time.
have a suggestion, which is if you say about 8 weeks, that means come May, if we were able to see it as part of the package before our RCC meeting in May, that would feel like enough time for me personally, which is to get the materials about a week before our meeting, and then to be able to devote like a good chunk of time during our May meeting to review it together.
I would
That's
say
a
we should.
suggestion for how to organize it.
Yeah. I would definitely like to give folks more than a week to look at it before our meeting, because it is a lengthy document. So I would like to give folks, 2 or 3 weeks, if not like a month, to look at it, and then we could meet. Like, I don't know if we can time that perfectly, but if we can get it out, and then folks have a few weeks to look at the document and digest it, and and write their own comments. I would also think that it might be helpful to devote almost an entire RCC meeting to talk about all those things, because I'm sure there's going to be tons to talk about. And based on my experience in the ACFC meetings, like it's easy to just get stuck on one topic for a half an hour or an hour or so. I think that, yeah, ideally Document will get sent out. RCC members will have at least a couple weeks to look at it. And then we can come together and talk about it together at a RCC meeting. And then we can basically sort of sign off on or like vote on what our, what our comments are, right? Like if we have any major concerns or, if there are any comments that we want to, or if there's any positive comments, I guess, or, any suggestions, we can basically write those up and then basically, sort of approve them formally and then pass those on to me, I guess. I mean, to ACFC. I'm sort of the go-between, and I'm the chair of both, so it's kind of a weird situation.
Is it
Trevor?
shorter or longer than the town plan?
It's shorter.
Like a lot shorter?
How many pages is the town plan?
Like 120 or something, I don't know.
It's not that long.
How many pages are we looking at?
Well, it depends on whether or not you want to read the appendices. I don't know what the total length is right now. I think the main plan itself is like maybe 40 pages.
Okay.
But with appendices, it's longer. So it's probably double that if you're reading all the appendices. So yeah, it's pretty lengthy. And also like, I don't know. I mean, there are some sections you might not have comments on, right? Where it's like it talks about, the history of the forest. There's cultural, significance. There's recreation. There's conservation. There's forestry. There's education. So there are some sections that you may read through, but not necessarily have comments on. So we don't necessarily need folks to go line by line and have thoughts on every little thing. In fact, it would probably be more helpful if ultimately most of the comments are a little bit higher level. Like, hey, this section looks pretty good, but we feel like you're missing like one big objective or like action item that we should be, approaching in this section. Or we think that the conservation, like the environment protections are not strong enough for, this environmental, group or something, So I feel like those are the types of comments that we would be looking for, rather than, hey, I don't like this sentence, Yeah. But there may be things like that too. There are a few sentences in the plan that are probably going to get scrutinized pretty heavily, and we may need to change them. Bob?
It would be very helpful if you could warn us when you think we're going to get it so that we can plan time ahead of time. That will shorten the distance between when we get it and when we meet. That's the first thing. Second, based on experience, I would strongly recommend that everyone read it, assemble their comments, send them all to you for distribution before we meet as a committee.
Yeah, I would agree. And we've been doing that a lot with ACFC, so I can kind of organize that when we get closer. That is the best method, is to like, everyone looks at the document, you can leave your comments, you send it to me, I just bring them together, and then we can send out like one, potentially like either all the different versions, but what's worked even better is one combined version that has all the comments on it. Because then we can basically project that on the screen and go through it together and just like look at all the comments like chronologically. And seeing as it's a 40+ page document, that's why I think we'll need a full meeting to cover it. Hopefully we don't need more than that. If we do, then I don't know if we need a special meeting, or we can cross that bridge, if we get there.
That's part of why I want to know how long it was to plan for it. Because sometimes I can't use the computer after I'm done work
Oh,
for looking at things, so I have to print stuff out.
Got it.
So like I just want to like plan that out, because sometimes I'm not able to use a computer after I'm done working.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I want to myself time.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a long road, but we're almost there, and which is exciting. I'm really hoping that folks like it. I feel like we've come up with a really solid approach, but I guess I'll find out whether or not I just feel that way because I've been working on it for so long that I feel like it's a good product. I'm just writing myself a couple notes here just so I don't forget. Sorry for the silence.
Sam, I would just like to thank you so much, and please extend our gratitude to the committee for sticking with it. It's really been quite remarkable, all the extra time you've put into it.
Right.
Thank you.
I second that, Sam. Thank you. You guys have done a really fantastic job, I'm sure. I know you've put a lot of time into this and efforts, and I think it's been in a pretty difficult places at times.
Yes, it has been. Thankfully,
Yeah.
since I have joined, it's like I don't know, I don't know, tenor of the meetings has changed a bit. Historically there were some pretty challenging meetings where there were, raised voices and maybe even tears. And I don't think we've had any of that since my my time on the committee. So yeah, it has been a lot of work, but I think it's going to feel great to get it out. So I'm really looking forward to it. So happy to do it. I'm also very much looking forward to getting back to just one meeting a month and getting to actually work on other fun stuff in the forest and not just talk about the management plan every single meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
what a relief. You stepped in at the right time.
Yeah, I guess. It's been quite the ride.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we should probably move on. Because we've been over on a few different items here. So let's just keep moving. Hopefully we'll have enough time to talk about the RFP, because that's like really something we should probably spend some time on. So moving on to Save Our Salamanders. Jeanette, do you want to handle this, or do you want me to walk through the few items on the agenda and then we can discuss?
Well, I know we're short on time, so I can keep it brief. There's not a lot to say at this point. I just would like to know if I have support to put together an itemized list. There's really just 2 items that would help us this season to have to make sure that the volunteers are equipped with those little data collection waterproof notebooks. We need more of those. And we found that those traffic wands that are really bright were especially helpful in getting motorists to slow down. So I'd like to order more of those. I can email everybody, if you think this is appropriate, the list of those 2 items, what they cost. The total comes to about $113 for both. If you want, I could follow up with Judy and find out what she's done in the past to be able to secure the funds for equipment, which we've done 2 rounds of. This is our 3rd year. And I don't know if she went to the select board to get approval or if she was able to just do that through Josh.
I
But
believe
I
those
guess the first question is, are we all in support of getting those items for our volunteers?
Yes.
I am also in support.
Yeah.
And then would you like me to follow up talking to Judy about the steps I should go through to secure the money?
Yeah, or you could just work with me on it. I mean, it's easy enough to look up what we decided on. Like I can either look up the select board meetings and see if it came up there, or if it was in the RCC minutes. But also I could just ask Josh about it, because there are things like that for like really small like dollar amounts where technically he can just approve them, and like $100 is nothing, but I don't. So yeah. And I've worked with Josh a decent amount already, since I've transitioned to the chair role. So, I'd be happy to handle that. I mean, you're welcome to email Judy if you want to and CC me, but I could also probably pull that information together pretty easily.
Okay.
Rich.
Okay, so I'll just do it then.
No, I'll go ahead and email you and Judy and
Okay, great.
see what Judy has to say, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, that's perfect. Did we want to talk at all about recruiting volunteers? I guess it's just more of an informational item. If anyone here knows people that would be interested in volunteering for the season, that would be great, since it's always good to have more folks.
I was going to recommend at this early point in time that, ideally each of us tries to find one person to invite to give it a try. And I'm planning on having the training again in late March. And I'll probably cast a bigger net. And when I send it, feel free to forward it to anyone else you can think of who might want to show up to the training, because you never know. And we'll take it from there to see who else we have on board. We've learned that we really need ideally 2 or 3 people on each end of the road. So we're really just talking about 2 roads, Route 2 and Cochrane Road. So you're looking at, you know, 4 people total per road minimum per night for about 6 nights. But anyways, I think what would save us some time is if we just wait until that time comes, and I'll send out the stock invitation describing, inviting people to join us and describing what the training's all about. I have contacted Katie Nolan, and she has agreed to be our data collector and submitter. And
Nice.
that's huge, because that's a really important part of the job. So I think we're in good shape at this point.
Can you send it to me now? Because I've not seen this before. I don't know anything about it. Like, can I
Yeah,
put,
Trevor,
details on it? Yeah.
definitely, we would love your participation, and I'll send you the information. And even if you're not 100% sure if you want to do it, if you want to come to the training to check it out
Yeah.
and decide after the training, it's actually really fun. The first part of the training is a video training you would do at home. And then the second part is about a 45-minute get together with the volunteers to do a couple of fun exercises to get ourselves ready.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jeanette. And moving on, so we will move on to the RFP. So, as we covered last meeting, we've got this stock RFP that we are looking to finalize that we can use for invasive plant species removal projects in town. The plan is, agree on any adjustments that we want to make to this RFP, and then present it to the select board. At the very least, notify them of like what we're doing. I'm assuming that they would like us to probably speak to them about it, at a select board meeting, and basically let them know here's our thought process, and that here's like sort of a justification statement for why we want to pursue these projects in town. And then here is basically the template that we're going to want to use for multiple projects moving forward. And hopefully we have their blessing, and then it's a little weird, but we would essentially submit our own CRF applications for these things, which Josh said was a little weird, but there's no rule against it as far as we know. So, but we could also ask the select board what they think about this process as well. They might prefer for there to be sort of a submitter, and that would not be on RCC, or but I think it's probably fine. It's not in the language saying that we can't apply for these funds. We would just be voting on something that we have crafted, so we're probably going to be in support of it. But I think that's fine because it will have met all the CRF criteria. So Yeah, that's basically the plan. So I will, I guess, share my screen and pull up the RFP. I did get comments from a few folks. I got comments from both Jeanette and from Bob on the RFP. So let me just find those. We only have about 10 minutes, so it might be that we need to talk about things a little bit high level, and then I may need to just make those changes. My initial thought was if we had the time, we could kind of go through section by section and then integrate comments and do that. But we just don't have the time to do that tonight, unfortunately. So let me just find those documents real quick. All right, here's Bob's and then Jeanette. RFP. Oh, okay, this is just an email. Okay, great. So let me share. Okay, so we had a few documents. Sorry, I gotta get this all squared away. So yeah, I mean, seeing as the two individuals who submitted comments were Bob and Jeanette, do you guys have a preference on like how we go through the comments here, considering the short amount of time that we have?
I have some thoughts. First
Great.
of all, is this a generic template which may appear in different garbs as time goes by for specific projects? That's the first comment. And then I think we really do have to look at the big picture. Is this something we're going to do for the whole town, for a targeted area? Is it for many species or a single species?
Yes, those are great questions. So this is the template that we would use for specific projects. So yeah, essentially this is not for any specific project yet. We had
Right.
I think discussed potentially looking at Overrockers and or Volunteers Green as places to target first, because those are spaces that are widely used by the community and have invasive species issues. So if they have multiple species and there are issues with multiple species, then they would both be noted, or however many there are would be noted in the project. Especially considering the fact that if a contractor is already on site doing invasive species removal, it would probably be more cost effective to handle them all in one fell swoop, versus come here and take care of our knotweed, and then come back and take care of our bindweed, and then come back and take care of our buckthorn, or whatever, unless we have an issue with getting approval for funds, in which case maybe we would try to scale back and just target a certain type of species. But I don't think that would be necessary. So that is basically the plan here, is that it would be that this is just something we kind of keep on file, that then anytime we have a project that we would like to submit a CRF application for, we basically get a copy of this and we just fill it out, which is why there's all this yellow highlighting and bolded text. So we know all the places that we need to fill in the text. So where's the site and what's the plant or plants that we're targeting, and and so on and so forth. So this is sort of like the boilerplate that we would use to make our lives easier as we start to target these these projects in town.
Sam, I have a suggestion, which is, since this is our first attempt doing this as a town, I think it would be ideal to treat it like a pilot, a test. So we're not only testing this RFP, but we're testing the whole process. And in that light, I think it's smart to designate eventually when we fill in the blanks, the number of acres we're looking at, but leave it open to the consultant to express to us what they find and what they recommend. And we can always from there, decide, if we agree, if we want to go ahead and target a variety of species that the consultant finds and wants to or is able to remove and manage over time, or we could say we actually would like you to scale it back.
Yeah, okay.
And all in the interest again of not leaving the amount that we're looking at too open-ended for our first shot at testing this approach. Does that make sense?
Can you say that
I
last
think
thing?
it does. I think
Oh,
it
sorry.
does.
So
Just
like,
the-
I've talked to somebody in town who does this for a living. He only does manual work. And I asked him, what's the greatest number of acres you've managed by hand? And he said that for the town of Rochester, he removed 6 acres of buckthorn. So if we want to fill in the blanks by saying we'd like you to focus on Overrocker and the park, each place up to X number of acres. So that, and ideally we would designate getting John Cart's help because he knows those spaces the best. Here's like from point A to B, this is the area we would like you to assess for what we've got and make a recommendation for how to remove it and, and provide a description of your services to remove what you find.
So do you think that requires an update to the template we have here? Or is that sort of like, do we want like a separate document that we would use to sort of like inform ourselves how we
I guess
want
it would be under scope of work
Okay.
somewhere. Because, there's many acres that Overrocker, like Overrocker, are we talking just the parking lot? Or are we talking about from Overrocker going west all the way to the cemetery?
Yeah.
What I'm saying, like, that's where I think we need to be a little more specific about the scope of work. And the person to really help us with that, I think, would be John.
Okay.
I very much like what Jeanette is saying. I would argue that it will require a complete rewrite of this targeted at that particular kind of project. The right stuff is here, but you're going to have to pull out pieces, remove pieces, reorganize pieces, depending on the project. And let me ask another target. Sorry. Is the ACF going to do anything like this?
We could potentially use this for work in ACF, but right now the ACF committee has not talked about invasives management. But it's a great place for us to, I mean, there are problems in there, like there's like a big Asiatic bittersweet problem pretty close to the road, and I believe there's like a small bit of Phragmites off the like main access road, and there are other things like in various places in the forest, like by and large, most of it is like pretty good. There's definitely some honeysuckle, and like occasionally I'll run into a barberry. I don't know if I've seen any buckthorn, but I'll at least cut the berries off and collect them whenever I see something like that, so it doesn't spread. But yeah, I mean, I think absolutely we could use this for ACF. I think that's a bigger scoped project, and I think that targeting some of these smaller ones first as like sort of a trial is like the way we want to go. If we feel like we're successful in like the first pass, these are going to be probably multi-year efforts where we take a pass and then we, evaluate, and then, maybe the contractor comes back, or maybe we have a couple passes and then we can manage it ourselves with volunteer hours after it's gotten to a certain level. So I don't know if after the first season or if after the second season, or, or so on, then we would potentially want to expand it to other locations as well. But I think we'd want to do a first pass on a few locations that we can really sort of dial it in and know what we're working with. And then if that's been successful, then we could potentially start approaching projects in other places in town that we also would like to see a reduction in the invasive plant species.
Sam,
So
the
for
other
me,
reason I like that approach is because it's consistent with building off of all the hard work that John Cart and many, many volunteers have put into both of those locations. That is now sort of it's just it's beyond what they're capable of managing alone.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, this is a proof of concept, exactly what I think we should start with, as Jeanette is saying. And let's pick a project as soon as it's feasible. And then you start with that as the project. And then you go to the top of page 1 and you go through this whole thing and you pull out the pieces that fit this particular project.
Yeah. So do you think that it would make more sense to have the boilerplate to have more than we need, and then we would just cut from it, right? Like it, or is less more in this situation? Would we rather have a more bare bones boilerplate that we have to write more into, or would we like something more comprehensive that then we just cut out the sections that don't apply? I feel like the latter might be easier, even if it looks a little bit more overwhelming as a boilerplate. It's a lot easier to just cut out a paragraph or a line than it is to remind yourself to, oh, we should write X, Y, and Z for this specific project.
This has all the stuff in it. It's just a question of polishing it, focusing it, and making sure it's particular and specific for whatever the project is.
Yeah, gotcha.
Seems to me.
I
An
don't know.
overrocker would be great. And maybe a single species. This is proof of concept. Let's see if we really can do this, guys, and then we'll have more stuff coming on later.
Trevor, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I thought this looked fine as is as like a template, but then I think we just pick a project and fill it out and make it what we want for something. I feel like it's probably at the point where we should just do that. Because we might see the stuff that's missing that we might want to add in to also keep it in the future to like the template document, but there might be things where like that we don't probably ever need to use that. But I feel like we just do it.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, what we could do is not really present this to the select board at all. Like not let them know about the stock, thing or like our plans, and yeah, basically just pick a project, fill it out using what we have here, and then just see how they feel about it. And then, so I don't know, I can pull up the email that I had with Josh. If you give me a second.
Can the town apply to use the funds since like who owns the park?
The town owns what, like Volunteers Green?
Yeah, couldn't the town just apply to use it? Like who else would apply for it?
Yeah, I mean, technically, I don't think there's anything that's restricting the town or RCC from applying for these things.
Like if someone decided that didn't want us to do it, then the town could do it. But I didn't see anything that made it sound like we couldn't apply because we're not approving the funds. It just goes to the select board. They're the ones who actually decide. We just make a recommendation.
Yeah.
A
So
couple of things there. In the past, the town administrator, Jeff, uh, submitted a proposal for the select board. I don't remember why, but I think if we want to get this done in any reasonable time frame, it should be from us, by us, sent to the select board.
yeah.
I'd prefer that method.
So yeah, what Josh had said, I don't see anything in the fund policy that prohibits the Conservation Commission from applying for funding, though I agree it is a bit awkward that the Conservation Commission would vote on its own application. However, as you point out, the select board has the final vote on funding.
Right.
Let's discuss this with the select board when you present the RFP to be transparent and see if anyone has any objections or has a different approach to how the application should be submitted. So
Oh, God.
that gave me the feeling that like we should float this draft, like this sort of boilerplate RFP to the select board to see how they feel about it. But we could just fill it out and just tell them, hey, we were trying to proceed with this project and see what they say.
I would not submit this as it is to the select board. The question, as you're approaching it, is select board, is it appropriate for RCC to submit a proposal for dealing with invasives? Yes or no?
Yeah, I would ask that, and if there's no problem with it, then we just do it.
Yeah.
Isn't that the key question?
Yeah, I dig that. So I can just send them an email and just say,
Yeah.
hey, we're planning on submitting in the near future, we're planning on submitting a CRF app for funds to manage invasive species in. I don't know if we should do both at once or if we should just choose one, either Volunteers Green or Overrockers. It's probably going to be a little easier to handle if we just do one to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can just tell them, hey, here's our plan. And then they can say, great, send us the app and we'll talk about it. Or they might say like, hey, this is, let's take a step back and talk about if this even works. So yeah, I guess I like the idea that we're just going to use this template as is, or with a few minor adjustments to just fill it out for our first project and then get that in front of the select board and see what they say.
I guess my vote would be, I like the idea for this first trial to just pick one spot.
Yeah.
Remember, this is just a test, and I know we're eager to do it anywhere and everywhere, but we want to be successful with one spot. And I would personally like to see it be the park because of, it's so highly visible and used by so many different walks of life in town that we could even put up some educational stakes so that when people walk by, they can see what we're up to and learn a little bit more about what they can look for in their own backyards.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Kit, what do you think?
Well, I agree with you. And I was looking at Waitsfield
Right.
Conservation Commission. They did it. They applied for their own funding. And yes, it was 3 towns. It was Waitsfield and I forget the other 2 towns. They did it and it didn't seem to have a problem. And it was for $100,000. It was a lot of money. And then and I'm not sure if that included the matching, a grant for matching funds or not. But I know it either was both. It was around 100,000, and I thought that was a lot of money, but they did it, and so I don't know why we couldn't do that, and even look at some of what they did and kind of piggyback on their what they did for themselves. And I think I think that might help us.
Yeah, I think we need another month to flesh this out and revisit this in March.
Yeah,
And, based on everybody's input today, just go ahead and take this boilerplate and fill in the blanks for the park so that we can bring this back and look at it together and see, is this something we all think is a wise direction to go in, and then take it from there to the select board. What do you think? What do you all
Yeah,
think?
I would agree with you, Jeanette. I think that's a good idea.
It feels like we need some more time and to consult with Ron about the park to be able to fill in some of these blanks.
Right.
Um,
So
assuming that we all agree to just aim for one spot for this year.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is we don't really need to fuss with the template much more. Let's just take the template and use that to craft an RFP for Volunteers Green and try to get that filled out in time for us to discuss at our next meeting, assuming we like it, and we would essentially be voting. Are we talking about preliminary, or are we talking about actually presenting it to vote to approve our own app? Because that will matter in how we format the agenda and whether or not we're actually vetting our own CRF application next meeting, or if we are just talking about building the app, or I think that matters, because if we're talking about voting to approve an application, then there might be more interested parties, in town, residents and whatnot, who might want to show up and give their input. Versus if we're just talking like high level crafting a CRF app, but we're not actually going to vote on it and make a motion and vote on it to pass on to select board, that makes a big difference. Because remember last August when we did not put that item explicitly on the agenda for the Browns Park stuff, and we got into some hot water because
Sam? Yeah, can I respond? Because I know it's getting late. I think we need another month to flesh things out together as a group and to not rush it.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, we won't plan on like motioning or anything. We're basically just going to fill it out as if we were going to submit an app, talk about how we think it looks, and then I guess on the next agenda we would basically be voting on it after our feedback. Okay, I like that.
For like order purposes, there'd be a CRF app done before we put the RFP out, or we'd send the RFP out? Because otherwise, I don't know what we're asking for. Like how much money? Like what's the order that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like do we get the RFP done and we can send it to the select board that they can send it out and get bids? Because I don't know what we're doing. Like I don't know what we're gonna ask for yet.
Yeah. That's a good question, and maybe we talk about that next meeting. Bob?
So there's two stages here. First, select board. Is it okay with you guys if RCC submits an RFP? Period.
Yeah.
That's the first question. Second question is providing an RFP. And I agree with Jeanette. I think stage one is someone, and I hope someone will raise their hand, writes an RFP for the next meeting for our general internal discussion. And then the following meeting, given we have the time to do that, the following meeting, we do the more formal discussion and then send it to the select board. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It does.
that does.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I get that. So the next question is, who wants to write the RFP?
I could help with it. I just don't know enough about the topics to really do it myself.
Yeah, it would be great if we could get John Cart to help us, since he knows the most about that plot.
Sam, I've been in a lot of communications with him about it. I think it makes sense that I would do that with him. I know you've been really helpful. Actually, you're the one who put this particular one together, would you be okay with me continuing to talk to John and then to you? And Trevor, if you wanted to join us, I'm happy to loop you in.
I would love for you to run point on this because I'm going to be very busy the next month working on Andrew's community forest stuff. So I would that would be great. That sounds awesome. And just remember, if we're discussing something like this amongst community members, we need to make sure we're keeping it below a quorum for open meeting law purposes. It's one thing to send something out informationally, it's something else to collaborate with someone. But that would be fine. We have a 7-member committee, so a quorum is 4. So 3, yeah. So 3 or less people. John's not on RCC, so that's fine. So
Right.
Jeanette, if you're working with John and you want to coordinate with me and Trevor, that would be fine. We would still be under a quorum, but we can't discuss with any more people. Bob?
Remember something else that Kit pointed out, that you got some help from the Rubenstein School for the Waitsfield project. I remember
Right.
sitting down with Steve and Beverly Rubenstein to get them to do this many years ago. And so use that as a resource, maybe to help us even plan if we should find that that's the best way to go. I would start with Jeanette and John, but we could get them to come in and say, okay, here, we'll scope the project for you.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
here's a thought.
That's,
Another thing worth mentioning is at the beginning of this meeting, I talked about the UVM landscape design class that came 8 days ago. And
Yes.
the timing is pretty good. If we're choosing Volunteers Green as our first plot that we want to target, it could be that we could coordinate with them and we might be able to get we might be able to partner with them in some way. And I can also reach out. So I guess I can't remember if I had mentioned this or not in the past meeting. I know I mentioned it to Jeanette on the phone at some point, is that last month I went to the Winooski Natural Resources Conservation District held a forum here that was geared towards like conservation commissions and like I think state employees and like farmers. And it was basically just trying to figure out like what the needs of the area were for funding. But those folks do a lot of communication with a lot of different people, and they're really good at coordinating, getting people in touch with the resources that they need, whether those are actual funds or those are groups, that are doing the work. So what I discovered in that meeting is that there's not a lot of funding out there for invasive species removal. However,
We have.
if you are including replacement with a native species as part of your project, then sometimes there is funding. So that is another avenue that we could pursue. And perhaps the WNRCD people could maybe tip us off to potential funding options. If we're going to be using CRF application or CRF funds for this project, it could be that we can get matching funds if they know about any, So that's just another reason for us to not be discussing this as like an actual something we'd be voting on next meeting, because it gives us more time to coordinate with some of these other parties. So I can talk to, I guess I'll reach out, I'll put an action item for myself to reach out to the class, the UVM landscape design class,
Yes.
to let them know about like what we're trying to do here and whether or not there's anything that they would like to participate in for the project. And then I'll also reach out to the WNRCD to see if they have any potential funding avenues that they know about. Did you have a question?
I was just thinking, I don't really know.
So yeah, I think that's a pretty good plan for this. And we are over by about 15 minutes, so it's probably a good time to wrap up discussion unless folks have other thoughts. Jeanette's going to run point, coordinate with John Cart. She can loop in me and Trevor as necessary. And meanwhile, I'll reach out to UVM, the landscape design class, and to the WNRCD to see if they have anything for us on this front. Sound good?
Yep.
Great. Well, with that, I think we will not talk about any website stuff because it was only if time allows, and time does not allow. We're 13 minutes over. So can I get well, does anyone have any thoughts on business for next meeting? I think we kind of have our marching orders from tonight. I will send you guys, if it doesn't get sent out automatically by Duncan, I will just check your email tomorrow at some point during the day. Either Duncan will send an email to you or I will forward it. So that will have the notes that everyone can look at for, future reference. And also it should have action items and stuff in there as well. So yeah, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, Kit, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Trevor seconds. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thanks, you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
All right, we'll be in
Okay.
touch. See you
Bye-bye.
next month.
Sleep well, stay warm.
Yep.
Will do. See ya.